Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Brandon Green. Today I wanted to get back to some fundamentals. I got a question this week from Zach who says, what does it mean to play with your shapes? Whenever I look at something, I don't see the shapes people talk about or how to draw through forms. I don't see how you make your shapes out of circles, squares, and triangles. They look so organic without being stiff or rigid. Now what he's talking about here is the way we construct things as artists, we generalize shapes. In order to better understand the three-dimensionality of the thing we're drawing, we represent that form with a much simpler form, and those forms are actually made up of much simpler shapes. The shapes that he's referring to is a square, a circle, and a triangle. These are the three two-dimensional shapes that you really have to master in order to draw pretty much anything. You have to understand what these shapes look like at different angles, different perspectives. You have to know that a square, if you kind of pushed it over, being two dimensions, the top edge of that is going to get smaller as it recedes back in space. The circle is going to squish its way into an ellipse, and the triangle is going to just be a squished triangle. It's also going to help if you can learn to draw these things if you rotated them 45 degrees and then made them fall. Any way that you can master these three shapes is going to be all the better for you. Because once you master those, then you can start to master the 3D representation of those shapes. In three-dimensional forms, we have four shapes that we really hold to be the four core shapes that make up anything. If you master these four shapes, you can construct anything. So we know how to draw these now that we've mastered our squares, our circles, and our triangles. We understand that a circle knocked over on edge is an ellipse, and we use that to understand more round forms. We understand that the bottom of a cone is a circle, and we know how to draw a circle on edge, so we know that the bottom of that cone is an ellipse. The cross section of the sphere is an ellipse. We understand what a square looks like as it's tilted over at different angles, so we know how to draw the sides of a cube. We understand what these shapes are because we've drawn through the shapes, meaning we've drawn behind the shape. We've drawn the things that are never going to be seen in the final render, but it helps us in constructing these shapes. It helps us to construct the object that we're making, that we're drawing. So, I'll give you some examples. I went through and I just found some reference. These are just things that you may or may not draw in any given day. Knock that way back, and I'm just going to show you the way an artist needs to see these things in order to construct them better. A snowman is three spheres. Everybody should recognize that in their head. It's just three balls. You make three large snowballs, you stack them on top of each other. It's a snowman. So to draw that, we draw three spheres and you stack it on top of each other. An ice cream cone is a sphere for the ice cream and a cone for the cone. Surprise, surprise. When drawing architectural stuff, we can really boil it down to blocks or cubes. Even this angled roof can really be seen as a half of a cube that's been tilted up on one of its edges. The skull can be boiled down to a sphere and a cylinder for the face and jaw area. And the horse, any animal or person can really be broken down like this. Arms and legs tend to be cylinders, and spheres for joints. The bodies can be either spheres or cylinders. Heads, spheres. This is how I view this. This is how when I go to draw a horse or a person or any other thing that's very organic, I break it down into these shapes. I'm not locked into these shapes. I'm not getting so far trapped into these cylinders and spheres. They're just to help me see what this shape is. Okay, so when drawing a horse, let me grab a color you guys can see. Draw on the right layer. So when drawing a horse, because I drew this form, I know yes, and I'm going to spend a ton of time on this horse. I know how this horse is constructed, and then it's just taking that information that I have and turning it into organic. And this is a combination of knowing my forms, but also knowing some anatomy, knowing some basic drawing techniques of overlap and line weight, You can see right here on this hoof, the red line, I drew through. I know this hoof goes like this. It just comes straight out like that. I'm not drawing that in my final, but because I drew through, now I understand. I understand what that form is. So I'm just going off the 3D forms that I kind of traced over this horse. I haven't drawn this horse before though, so I'm just gonna kind of guesstimate where I'm at here and what kind of organic form sits there, and then we'll see how close I get. Just for fun. I'm not gonna worry about the face and, like, you know, the eyes and stuff. Okay, so let's see how close I got. Ah, pretty close. There's a few little details that I could definitely work on. You can actually see the back of the legs here, like the hiney. I got the eye a little low, but all those things are things that, you know, if I were sitting in front of reference, I could definitely fix. But I did that drawing just from those 3D shapes. So it really helped me to construct that horse and give me the information that I needed. And then the best thing about this is once you figured out that that horse is a cylinder and these legs are cylinders and the head is a sphere and the nose is a cylinder and the neck is a, did I already say neck is a cylinder? Whatever. The point is, once I know those forms, I could turn this horse and draw them from a completely different angle. Those 3D objects are going to stay the same. It's still going to be a cylinder for the body. It's just going to be a different angle. So if I can draw cylinders from different angles, I can draw a horse from different angles. That's the beauty of breaking things down into very simplistic 3D forms. So one thing he mentions in his email is drawing things like people and how to make things look real while cartooning them. Cartooning them, yeah. Got hung up on that word. So I just want to kind of do a real quick draw over of the things that I see when doing something like my cabbage zombie. I see a sphere for the head. And just like in that skull that I drew, that I turned it into a sphere and then the face was more of a cylinder, I really played off of that going into this this low-hanging mouth and jaw. I recognize that as a cylinder that's just been dropped and really extended and exaggerated, thus playing with my shapes. I'm exaggerating shapes to get some different looks. This neck is just one big cylinder. And just knowing anatomy, you know the rib cage is right here. And then the abdomen, just another cylinder sitting right below the sphere of the rib cage. You have the shoulders. Drawing the shoulder through back here, drawing behind, just so I understand where that's coming out. This is something that actually bothered me. See this arm right here, how it's pointed to nowhere. Bones don't tend to bend. But he's a zombie, so maybe it's broken or something. But I don't know, just a little thing that bothered me when I first did this, and I just kind of went with it because I didn't want to fix it. But don't tell anybody. So anyways, back to my shapes. The arm, just a bunch of cylinders. You can do spheres for the elbows if you want. This cylinder for this arm is going to be foreshortened. He's going to be coming at us. And then you have the elbow right there. And then this thing right there would go up to the shoulder. That cylinder. I won't do the hands, but I'll tell you what a hand basically is. A hand can be boiled down to a cube-like shape, kind of stretched like a rectangle. And then each segment of the finger are just cylinders. So that's one way to construct a hand. Break it down to these shapes, and then you can just come in and you gotta kind of think about where the meat on the hand is, and kind of fill it in from there. So you don't want to get stuck, like I said, in that skeleton of of basic shapes. You're using that basic shape system to construct and to help you to understand what's happening on that hand, understanding that there is a side to the hand right here, to understand that this is the top of the hand. So it helps you get out of that flat 2D world. And we can continue this. I mean, these are all cylinders. Cylinder, I'm doing this really quick. I apologize if I've lost you, but I feel like this is very repetitive. Okay, so with that, we have the basic breakup, the basic three-dimensional breakdown of this guy, of this cabbage zombie. And even the cabbages, we could go in and understand that those are spheres. And, you know, understanding that they're spheres helps you to make them into lettuce. You understand that the cross sections come through like this. So when I make these little cabbage like leaf lines, I'm following that form. If I don't understand that that's a three-dimensional form, those little lines don't really mean much because they're just lines. So it's just such a benefit to understand the 3D forms that you're drawing. So that, I hope, answers your question, Zach. I hope that kind of shows you how I play with shapes, and it's really just a matter of understanding the shapes. Once you understand them, then you can really start to see them and draw them any way you want. And I hope this kind of shows you how to see them. You know, how things can be easily deconstructed into these shapes, and we don't have to stick to those rigid shapes. We're just using them as like a reference or a guideline to understand that, you know, this horse has three-dimensionality to it. It goes back in space. It's not just this shape. So please like the video if you liked it. If you learned something, that'd be awesome. Leave me a comment below. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I always appreciate that. You guys have a good week. Go draw something. Go deconstruct some things into some basic forms. You guys have a good week. Bye.